Hello. So let's have a conversation about intrusive thoughts. This is something that has been brought to my attention over the pandemic and the work I've done with adults and with children. There's been an increase anecdotally from what I've experienced in working with others, in this rise of these erasing, intrusive, disturbing thoughts that we become fixated on. And in this fixation, emotion becomes attached to it. There are a lot of feelings of anxiety, of depression that are wrapped up into it, and it becomes a cycle that perpetuates and gains strength. And so, in speaking to you about this, I want to speak to you about my own experiences with this. So I have a lot of skills that I bring to this work from all of my trauma-informed trainings, learning different modalities from somatic experiencing to breath work to mindfulness, to more Eastern modalities like EFT, through engaging with different therapeutic methodologies like cognitive behavioral therapy, dialectical behavioral therapy, acceptance commitment therapy, EMDR. My exposure and experience to these over my life as a practitioner, as somebody who's worked closely with mental health professionals, and in my own personal growth, I've had a lot of experience with this. But before I launch into why I have the ability to speak with authority on this and offer some ways in which to work with these thoughts, I'm going to set myself up so that I can successfully engage with this over the course of 10, 15, 20 minutes, whatever this ends up being. Because this is a very personal conversation that we're going to have. This is going to bring up a lot of memory, a lot of emotion for me. I've set up my space to have this conversation. So I've brought some items with me that symbolically keep me safe. So I have not a lot of memories of my father. I have some pictures, but I have the Arabic alphabet cubes that he gave me when I was a child. So I keep these close. These are something that I've used in the center of my talking circles at school with my children as well. And this is something that holds great significance for me and is a connection to him. Wherever he is, there is that connection, there is that love, I know that this is a direct line to my ancestry. I have a worry doll that one of my kids made, one of my students made for me. It's supposed to be kept by the side of the bed. I keep it in the bedroom with me. It's reminds me of being a teacher. It reminds me of the joy and the wonder I felt being in community with children, and how a lot of my strength, a lot of my learning has come from them. And this is something that I hold dear, that is protective of me. I have a bracelet that my wife got for me. It's our anniversary today, our 9th anniversary. So this is something near and dear to me as well. She is my great protector. I am lucky enough to have had incredibly strong women protect me over the years, from my grandmother to my mother to my wife. And this is something that I can take of hers with me wherever I go. I have my Nick Cage pillow over here. I'm not going to show it to you because I don't know about YouTube copyright, but dude is chilling over there. He makes me laugh. He makes me feel grounded, so he's hanging on the couch. And then I brought some lavender, and what I'm going to do is inhale the lavender. I know this inhaling it can lead to some inflammation, some discomfort for some people. For me, it's very healing. So I'm just going to put a couple of dabs on my hands. I'm going to rub it together. Take a deep breath in. Exhale. Rub it together a second time. Take another deep breath in. And I learned from an aromatherapist that it our essential oils change as you inhale them, and as you do it multiple times, the scent deepens. It gets more complex. So I'm gonna do it a third time, and it's completely changed over the course of those 3 inhalations. It's more subtle, it's more floral, and it's really a comforting, calm thing for me. My cat, Mr. Miyagi, is to my right, my wife is to my left, so there's a very safe place for me to talk about intrusive thoughts. And I deal with them. 5 years ago, this is not something that I dealt with or worked with till 5 years ago. So early 2017, there was a lot of anxiety. There was a lot of anger. I couldn't turn on the news without people attacking each other politically, without there being just this tone, and this fog of emotion in the airs that really hurt. It cut to the core. And at this time, I'd taken a new job. I'd moved from teaching into administration. I was working in a very stressful environment. My grandmother had just died. My grandfather had died a little bit before that. I was struggling to adjust to a new role in administration, a new school. Personally, I felt anxiety. I felt emotional all the time. And I went through a couple of weeks where sleep was difficult. And sleep's never been an issue for me. Sleep was difficult. I can look back and know now that like my body was in a state of fight, flight, or freeze consistently. Like my heart was racing. I felt rushed and panicked all the time. My wife had gone to Greece to do some relief work. She's a nurse, and she had gone to Greece to do some relief work with the Syrian refugee population there. So she was gone. I was feeling all kinds of things. There was a lot going on in my professional life, in the country. And when she returned from Greece, I think the second or third day she was back, was walking to the bathroom to take a shower, and all of a sudden my thoughts were not my own. My head was filled with what I know now is intrusive thinking. Disturbing, dark thoughts about me being hurt, about my loved ones being hurt. I'd never felt these before. I'd never thought these before. I'd never felt that level of fear and overwhelm and panic. I felt like I was hit by a truck. I collapsed onto the bathroom floor. I think I curled up into a ball and cried for hours. I dragged myself back to bed. I think my wife came in and found me later, and just these thoughts would not stop. They raced and raced and raced, and as they raced, emotions attached to them. My instinct was to fight against them, even though I have a lot of mindful and visualization techniques. My instinct was to fight, to suppress them, to push them down, which is very common from what I've talked to in supporting adults and children with them. So I'm in this space. I don't know what to do. So I ask for help, right? So I go through what traditionally we would do when in crisis, right? You would go to a doctor, and our typical response is to prescribe medication. And this is not an anti-medication screed. I'm not anti-medication. It works for a lot of people. For me, one medication led to another medication, which led to doctors giving 3, 4, 5 medications in combination with each other over time. And as this increased, I would have a couple of weeks of respite and then feel more unstable. My brain chemistry probably never normalized. I felt worse and worse. Depression became the norm. The thoughts never went away. And this led to, I don't even know how long, maybe 2 years, maybe 2.5 years of consistently trying new medication, struggling at work, right? Like I had to take time off of work because of this. This just continued to become an issue. And as the medications changed, every diagnosis known to man was thrown at me. The one that was most commonly used was OCD, intrusive thoughts, or pure obsession and having intrusive thoughts that just raced and raced and raced. And I tried all of the treatments, exposure response, EMDR, all of the things that you do to try to get some help. I tried experimental therapies, experimental medications. All of that exacerbated what happened in my head. It made it very difficult to be around me because I was in this spin constantly. And what it led to is an eventual desire to get off the medications, which had to be done in a hospital setting because some of the medication I was on, you had to be monitored to withdraw from. You had to be weaned off. So during this process of, can't even remember if it was a couple day or a week long process, I was put on different medications to wean off, right? Off of one, onto another. My main medication was also changed as well, which led to a horrible reaction, and me feeling in this setting hopeless, like complete, utter despair, that I couldn't go on, that there was no way forward, that nothing was going to change, the lowest I've ever probably been in my life, which of course meant that I had to stay longer to get stabilized on this medication that they changed, which led to me, once I had been weaned off the major medication, wanting to be off of everything. So wanting to be off of everything presented its own host of problems. So I continued to try alternative therapies, self-medicate. Out of desperation, trying literally any and everything that I could think of. I obsessively researched things that were not FDA approved yet, but that were being done in the country. And I tried like literally everything that you could try that could be done, and nothing worked. What eventually worked was having a support network that was patient enough with me to let me go through all of the different things that I wanted to try, but a support network that also held me accountable and was like, hey, like, let's figure this out, right? Like, this doesn't have to be the end of everything as you know it. This doesn't have to be where you stay for the rest of your life. And I was lucky enough with help to find a therapist who was incredibly patient and helped me reframe all of the symptoms, all of the thoughts, all of the emotions that came up with them as being symptoms of trauma, and couching everything as being under this trauma umbrella, which, with this support system, I gradually was able to stop trying to fight against the thoughts and move more into an acceptance of, these are part of my lived experience. These are part of my survival instinct. And because they're there doesn't mean that I can't move forward. And that really helped me to think about intellectually, like, that these thoughts might want to protect me, right? They might want to keep me immobilized because they think there's a threat externally. They think there's something dangerous there. So that helped me start to get some distance between the thoughts coming up, the emotions coming up, and where I wanted to sit and ground and be in the present. And I was then, over time, able to start to integrate a lot of the different trainings that I have into a supportive, proactive regimen of healing. I also was able to deepen my trainings and go more into really mastering breath work. This is when I discovered somatic experiencing, which was really been super helpful to me, and I know helpful to so many people who felt trauma in their body and in their minds and in their emotions. And this has been an incredibly rich experience as well, and one of the, I don't want to say a benefit, but one of the outcomes of going through an experience like this is you have a greater appreciation for what matters in life. The moments, the people, the experiences, the sharing of cultures, the building of community. And I wouldn't trade any of the experiences that I've had, even though when I've been in the midst of them, they felt like I was trapped in a prison of my mind, emotionally tormented. All of those experiences and all of that has deepened who I am as a person. It's made me a better person. It's made me a better support and resource for people that are suffering. And it's helped me build resiliency. It's helped me stand taller and straighter when times become incredibly tough. And it's really, I think, enabled me to be in a position to walk through this pandemic and to walk through everything that swirls around with arms outstretched and with an ear ready to listen, and with a deep desire to help others. So the things that harm us the most can also be the source of our healing. Post-traumatic growth comes from trauma. Think about the rose that grew from concrete, from from Tupac's great poem, right? That from this trauma, from this concrete sidewalk, from this cold, inanimate thing comes life, right? Comes a rose, comes growth, comes beauty. And I'm not a rose. I'm not some beautiful flower, but I'm someone who has walked through fire. And I love the Bukowski book. The quote that always sticks with me is, what matters most is how well we walk through the fire. We're all walking through a fire, right? We're walking through the stress of our lives. We're walking through uncertain situations at work, financial anxiety or insecurity, this heaviness hanging over the world, instability in different parts of the world and country. We're walking through it all. And we have to walk through it together. We have to connect to one another because we're the way forward. You, me, the people we love, the people we haven't talked to in way too long, the people we haven't met yet. They're all walking through something. We're all walking through something. We need to walk through it together. So, I am in a much better place because I practice a lot of skills daily. I don't have the same level of intrusive thinking that I did for multiple years. I have a lot of peace now. They don't come up in the same ways that they did. They do still come up. Anxiety and depression still come up for me. Those are part of my human experience. And what I've learned through all of this is that when those come up, that's a scared, small, childlike component of me that wants to be seen and wants to be heard. And so it's my job to listen, to ask questions, to support, to stand firm with what is and is not okay for right now, and to know that I can walk forward and walk through anything as a whole human being. So I will be building a playlist dedicated to intrusive thinking and different strategies to use when it comes up. Different ways to cope, different ways to ground, different ways to settle, that allow us to accept this part of us that is causing harm, but it is still part of us and does need love and does need affection and does need attention. So some of the things that we'll be going over are different breathing exercises. So we'll work on long, deep breathing. We'll work on box breathing, 4-7-8 breathing, alternate nostril breathing. One of the things that's always been super helpful for me in working with these are visualization techniques. So we'll work on different ways that we can turn our thoughts into balloons and leaves floating down a river and floating away. We'll talk about opposite or contrary action, which is when your thoughts and feelings are on top of you. We can't control them, but maybe we can control an action or a behavior that's positive. I'll be recording a series of breathwork sessions. This is a very deep practice that you do while you're lying down for about 30 to 60 minutes. It's been incredibly healing on my end. I'll walk you through that experience, which for me was really helpful to get outside of my head and to create a little distance between my body and my mind. We'll talk about riding the waves of emotion and walking into emotion so that it is felt, it's honored, and it's not scary. We'll talk about walking into the emotion and giving it shape and size and color and age and texture so that it's a thing. It's a thing that we can dialogue with, that we can be in discussion with, right? So that's a lot to put into an introduction. What I'd like to invite you to do is to reach out to me if you'd like to know more particulars about some of the experience, if there are ways that I can support you, if you would just like to talk about this, if you know someone who is going through this. I'll tell you, like, this is in the last couple of years I've worked with children that, like, this has started at like 7-8 years old, and I've worked with people that are in their 60s, right? So this is not something that discriminates. This is not something that's age specific. This is something that comes up and can be a true symptom of trauma. So what I'd like to do is be in community and connection with you. If there is any way, shape, or form that we can connect, that I can be of service, comment below, reach out to me, let me know your story, and let's create our story going forward. So we are brilliant, resilient, magical creatures, full of healing, full of this ability to transform and become. And through breakings, through bruisings, we remake ourselves. We grow stronger. We grow more brilliant. Thank you for taking the time to listen to part of my story. I want to know your story. And I look forward to connecting with you. Goodbye, friends.